Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome back to another round of My Patriot Report Live. I am Ratwan Hill, and I am with Mr. Walter Cotton the third. Mr. Cotton, how's it going, man?
It's going. It's going. It's going. As you know, I had a loss in the business family and still kind of mourning and recovering from that, but every day gets a little better.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and prayers up to his family. So they passed the National Defense Authorization Act on the Senate side finally. Uh, They didn't include the veteran-owned small business gold standard program for DoD. Uh, what's your thoughts on that? Like, what is the reason they wouldn't approve it again?
I'm biased, of course, because I'm a veteran and I'm a disabled veteran that enjoys the benefits of having access to the um, interest of a grateful nation. And so I can't for the life of me think that it's anything other than an oversight. I can't believe that Congress is intentionally snubbing the larger portion of the veteran community, right? Because most veterans didn't get injured. And so I can't for the life of me imagine what's going through their heads, but I can tell you in no uncertain terms that I'm going to get to the bottom of it. I'm going to find out.
Absolutely. What what signal did that send to you though that they didn't approve it?
It sent a signal to me that we have a legislature that's in disorder. Um, that's what it says to me. It says to me that there are people that are playing partisan games when there are the people's business that needs to be done. We've got people that are holding party lines when they should be holding patriotic lines. It means that I believe America's political leadership has lost its way. And as a result of that, the people's business is not being done in an orderly fashion. And we need some adults to show back up at the table and take control.
Indeed. Okay, so does this moment change how veterans should think about relying on Washington versus building power elsewhere, meaning within our
Absolutely.
ecosystem?
Absolutely. I'm one that I'm not promoting a survivalist kind of strategy, but I am promoting an individualist strategy, an individualist mindset. Our political leaders have proven at every level, right? This is not just the federal, right? This is the state, the local level also, that they have a real hard challenge governing, right? And so it is incumbent upon our true patriots, him and her who wore the uniform and him and her who didn't, to stand in the gap for our fellow citizens, right? We need to stand in the gap where it doesn't make economic sense, right? It doesn't make economic sense for you to make sure that those subsidies are there so that no child goes to bed hungry. We, the true patriots, are going to have to step in the gap, and we're going to have to make the contributions. And I don't want to call them sacrifices because they're not. We're going to have to make the contributions that our fellow Americans need so that we can get over this speed bump of lunacy that we find ourselves operating at.
Hmm. Do you see this as a delay, a temporary delay, or is this a wake up call because this is the second time that they didn't pass this pass the gold standard program for DoD?
Well, in point of fact, I like to major in the major thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And majoring in the fact that Congress hasn't put a new piece of legislation in place to kind of compel and force the agency to do what they already have the authority to do is not what I want to focus on. And what I mean by that, for those of you who are not aware of the fact that Congress has already given the administrator of the SBA special consideration authority. And so it's well within the administrator's right and has been within the administrator's right for decades to establish a gold program for veteran owned small businesses government wide. We don't need any new legislation for that, in point of fact. But the fact that no administrator of the SBA to date has found the testicular fortitude, dare I say, unmitigated gall to do what's right by him and her who served. We found our way back at the congressional trough asking them to do what our civil servants, what our appointed officials won't do.
Yes, sir. You spoke about special considerations, and then I remember Mr. Elmore telling us about how even with like I believe it's the 7A loans that we have prep veterans have special considerations throughout the whole SBA, and that they're not leveraging those special considerations for veterans. Could you speak on that a little bit more on the special consideration part?
There's an interview that Bill Elmore and I did about a year ago that dealt with that in his own voice. I could not do that area as much justice as Bill could. I will give you a topical strategic understanding of what the special consideration capability means. And it very simply is stated in the Small Business Act that the Secretary of the SBA has the authority to give veterans special consideration in the programs that are developed by the administration. So the loan programs, veterans have the opportunity to enjoy special considerations. I believe that was part of the authority that Bill used when he created the Patriot Express loan program, right? The administrator has it within her discretion, and I'm saying her because now our administrator is a woman, to simply say it is the right thing to do to create a gold contracting program for veterans who were not injured. Submit the proposed ruling for public comment. Once the public comment comes back, boom, you got a 5% gold program for veterans at every agency. Why that's not happening? Because there is no pressure. And it's time that we, the people, we apply a little pressure against this situation because, the question you asked a moment ago, which is, why hasn't the Congress gone ahead and already done the right thing? And it's because the squeaky wheel gets the oil, right? It's because veterans tend to be nonpartisan, right? We tend to support the Constitution, right? We tend to support the commander in chief. And so the politicians aren't threatened by us veterans, right? They appreciate us, right? They know that we're the strongest voting bloc in North America, strongest single voting bloc in North America. And so they appreciate us, but they don't have any concerns about us. They don't fear us coming together in one single voice and making a demonstration. Well, they're going to get that demonstration during this midterm election. And that demonstration is going to be directly tied to those politicians that did not do the right thing during this National Defense Authorization Act negotiation. And for those of you who, didn't, it's not my job, I didn't, it's not my job, he did that, man, right? Ignorance, right? Apathy is no excuse, right? It's not the people that were out there, yelling Heil Hitler that allowed Hitler to come to power, right? It was the apathetic masses that did nothing that allowed the few to create that kind of dictatorship energy in that nation. And we are not going to have that in this nation. And so in this season, our Congress is going to find out what an active veteran community, what an active patriot community looks like when we show up at the ballot box.
Absolutely. And that was my question. Do you think the veteran support today is more of a ideology or about execution? Because it seems like it just, from the federal standpoint, it's more, seems like an ideology as a campaign push.
So let me just say that, straight, direct notation. Are you saying that the language that we get of support from our politicians and our agencies is just lip service versus something tangible? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I look at the fruits, right? They say you will know them by their fruits, right? And the fruits that we're looking at are 22 veterans a day are committing suicide by their own hand. And we do not have a DEFCON 10 red alert to do everything that we can to stop that, right? The politicians think that they've done everything that needs to be done as they push this or that forward, but we want to leave no stone unturned. And so if a veteran could be considering that contract that he's going to win as a part of that $155 billion SHIELD contract that's coming out of Huntsville, Alabama, maybe that's enough of a positive motivation to, derail him away from the negative energy that's taking him down that lane that the government wore in his head through the service to this great nation. So I don't want to get on a soapbox here, right? But we need to do something different, and we need to do something different right now, because this lip service thing, thank you for your service on Veterans Day, it's not going to get us where we need to be from a national security perspective. And I'm saying that because I work with these veterans. I listen to the younger generation. I watch them as we go to these meetings, and they don't see the veterans that are out there at the VA with their canes and their wheelchairs as heroes. They see them as suckers. And we're making them be viewed in that way. So let's do something a little bit different, right? Let's not send these asinine strategies out there like this bill that I got wind of. I'm going to get the number of it, that some congressman has put in place that's supposed to provide an increased benefit for those disabled veterans. Listen to this, folks. This is the kind of lunacy that's coming out of an uncontrolled Congress. The bill is supposed to provide an increase in benefits for veterans that are in the S1 and S2 category. But you know how they propose to pay for it in that bill? They propose to take the VA funding fee for the home loans away from veterans in order to fund that increased benefit for him and her who bore the battle. Make it make sense to me, people. Make it make sense to me. Like how we can send money to Ukraine, right? How we can ship our guys out in Syria and Washington, D.C., where they can get attacked by, but we can't find the funds necessary to take care of them after they've come back without reducing their benefits. Now, this is a bill, right, that was concocted by some congressmen, right, during this season of Congress, but the unmitigated gall, right, the audacity to float that in the public and think that that's going to fly, that happens because we're patriotic. That happens because we say, you're welcome, when they say thank you for your service, instead of stopping them and asking them, have you helped the veteran today? Have you helped the veteran family today? Instead of holding people accountable, we need to change the narrative, folks. And it will change in 2026. take that to the bank.
Do you see certain governors or state legislators position themselves to say, if Washington won't protect the veterans, we will?
No, I don't. Even that 1776, head fake that we got from the president a couple of days ago, right? Those are token actions, right? Those are token actions for people that deliver something that is irreplaceable to this nation, right? The people that provide service to this country, they give of their time. That's the most valuable commodity they have, right? That's the thing that no amount of money can replace. And there are debates about the veteran tax, how veterans don't come back home with the networks that their, friends and buddies who stayed home. Right? All of this stuff is real. That's a very, very real thing. But we don't take that into consideration when they are making the ultimate contribution to the country, right? Whether it's out on the battlefield in some theater or on the battlefield in their mind, in the theater of these United States, a veteran that gives his life for this country is giving it all. And so we as a grateful nation, right, we've got to wake up. We've got to wake up and say, if we want to maintain our superiority, if we want to maintain an all volunteer fighting force, we need to start treating him and her who bore the battle and their families better.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. In certain states, they're focusing on policy more than politics. How does the volatility affects the veteran small business population?
How does the volatility of them focusing on policy affect the veteran? Say that another way. I'm sorry, I'm not understanding the question.
When the states are focused on when going into the midterms, they're focusing more on policies and how does that affect the veteran small business population in a whole?
Now, who's focusing on policy?
The the governors.
I'm not understanding the question, so I apologize, because the implication of funding has a delineation point at these levels, right? There's a delineation point at the federal level. There's a delineation point at the state level. There's a delineation point at the local level. And as you go down that level, the veteran benefit responsibility diminishes. And so the political actions at the federal level is where as they would say in that Wendy's commercial, that's where the beef is. So, what they're doing at a state level doesn't have as much sway or implication as we saw when President Trump deployed the National Guard to California, and Governor Newsom objected. And, well, everybody knows the rest of that story.
And so you believe that this gold standard preference program for DoD could be the tipping point for midterm. It could be the decision on.
I am saying that it already is the tipping point issue for the midterm. That question was asked and answered during the negotiation for the National Defense Authorization Act, right? We asked politely for you to do the right thing, and we said that there would be a consequence to be paid for not doing the right thing. We are not people that draw lines in the sand and put sticks on our shoulders when it comes to a fair fight. So we will see you at the ballot box.
Absolutely. Okay, so when federally the job is not being done, does location matter for veterans statewide? So like Texas, they're pretty veteran. I would say Texas is pretty veteran centric. You know, Florida is pretty veteran centric, meaning they have a lot of veteran incentives for veterans. Do you think location matters for veteran-owned small businesses in this time?
Yeah, I think that it does. I mean, if you have greater proximity to military installations, you have greater proximity to federal assets, right? You know, you're going to get more business than you will if you are in a more remote area, you know, of say, you know, West Virginia. Sorry about that. Yeah. If you're in an area that doesn't have assets that are easily contractable, you have an uphill incline in order to be minimally proficient. If you're in an area that has a robust saturation, your incline to success is less.
Okay, and more specifically, what I was referring to is veterans being in these states that are more veteran friendly. Is those the states that we could potentially team up with the governors in order to make change? You
So
know,
when you say, you know, these states that are veteran friendly, you know, what do you define as a veteran friendly state, right? Like what makes them veteran friendly?
I guess, okay, so from my perspective, when I'm looking at it, and I'll use Texas because that's where I'm at. Texas, they offer free LLCs for veterans. We got the we don't have to pay on land taxes. You know, we don't have to pay property taxes. Um, they have more programs for veterans. So I'm saying, I mean, I don't, and I guess you can answer this question. Is that more of a governor function, or is that just more of the bells and whistles in regards to the
Yeah,
state?
it sounds to me like more bells and whistles because it sounds like more of the same, right? You know, the other states will say, well, you know, we have discounts on property taxes for our veterans, right? Everybody's going to say we have something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
The question that they're not prepared to answer is it working? Is it making a difference? Right? You know, are the veterans in your state less likely than not to be homeless? Are the veterans in your state less likely than not? Are the veterans in your state more likely than not to be successful entrepreneurs? Right? Those are the kinds of characteristics that we need to look at and measure when we start talking about the, you know, comparisons and contrasts. Because there's a lot of, you know, this one's better than that, you know, or this is more friendly than that. That's based on criteria that doesn't matter. You know, like it doesn't matter in the real scheme of things, right? Is it going to help me overcome my homelessness? Right? Is it gonna help me, who skated through life, not knowing how to read? Not knowing how to read a ruler and grew to adulthood, transition back into society, right? Can you imagine that there's a 40 or 50-year-old man or woman out there who can't read or write their own name in 2026? Well, that's true.
Yeah.
And some of them are in the military.
Yeah. I witnessed that firsthand. I witnessed that firsthand with a sergeant major in the National Guard. Yeah.
Yeah, and so when people start talking about our state is better than your state. I mean, hey, this land is your land. You show me this land is my land. A country, county. You show me a state where veterans are thriving, right? Where you know you get a free cup of coffee. I mean, you show me a community that appreciates veterans the way him and her who bore the battle deserves to be appreciated, and I will take my hat off to you. I haven't seen it, and I have been coast to coast.
Okay, so with the National Defense Authorization Act and the Gold Standard Program for veteran-owned small businesses, what's could you give us a little bit insight on what's your plan of attack as the president of the elite SDVOSB network, or how do you influence that, say, in regards to we don't really need Congress to approve that, so what is the next step for you in regards to how we push this for our peoples, for our community, the veteran population, that is?
Well, I've always been one of those people that has been of the opinion that I can show you better than I can tell you, right? And so, what we're going to do is we are going to deploy an ecosystem in the community that I become the elite disabled veteran network president of, that is going to demonstrate exactly what I'm talking about, like what veteran friendly looks like, right? I wrote an article some years ago and I asked that question, right? I asked the question, are veterans welcome in Tomorrowland? Right. That was when that movie was real popular. It was a play on words. But since that article was written, I think that was 2018, I wrote that article. Right. I haven't seen the community step up to the pump. I haven't seen a community step up to the pump. Now, New York State is in a position to be the poster child for what communities that really embrace veterans look like, because I have elected to pursue them as the president of the elite chapter. Unfortunately for New York, I got a call from some friends out of Florida who said, "Walter, you were born in Florida. You was born down here in St. Petersburg, right? And if you're going to take all of your efforts and energies and make an impact, right? Wouldn't you do it in the place where your cord was buried? Wouldn't you do it in the place where your ancestors were from?" And so that request has me contemplating. It has me cogitating that question. Like, should I be doing this in New York, or should I be where I grew up? Right. When I was 4 years old, I was moved to Syracuse, and, I spent all my formative years there, but I was born in St. Petersburg. Right. When I got out of the military in 1985, I said I wanted to go live where people vacation. I wanted to see what it was like, because for those of you who don't know what lake effect snow is, that's what you learn about in places like Syracuse. So, I spent 20 years in St. Petersburg before I went to DC and started the disabled veteran contracting movement. It was there that the idea was birthed. So I got a decision to make, right? Do I go back to the community that gave me my academic springboard, right? My alma mater is there in St. Petersburg, Florida, the University of South Florida. They're saying, "Walter, come on down." Like, we've got law schools and everything that want to embrace what you're talking about doing right now. And then we got Syracuse, right, where we've got the Institute for Veterans and Military Families. Mike Haney's shop over there, that was a co-curricular idea. That was the the boot camp for veterans, economic boot camp for veterans, EBV, I think is what they called it. Right. So I got a decision to make. Right. Do I embrace my home that I was born in, or do I embrace the one that reared me? I'm going to make that decision, and I'm going to announce it on the Patriot Report. And the winner is going to get $50 billion worth of economic growth.
Wait a minute, LeBron. Hold on. LeBron, you telling me you about to go to Miami? You got the rings in New York, and now you about to go to Miami to win the ship?
I mean, that's a good apt analogy, and it should be an apt analogy, right? Because when you're talking about me and my pedigree and my background, traditionally I come pre-introduced, right? And so a guy who can be responsible legitimately for introducing the strategy that helps the disabled veteran business community grow their contracting from 750 million to well north of 19 billion, and compounded over the decades since we did that. Those numbers are approaching well north of $300 billion. I would say that person could be considered a LeBron, Jordan in 93 type performer. And so, yes, I'm going to take that talent. I'm going to take that capability, and I'm going to drive it against the community that I choose, my hometown or New York. And they've already started the suiting. I mean, I got there's an art festival in South Beach.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. I don't know if you guys know anything about South Beach in February. Well, I don't know why I got an invitation with a well, it's a place with a balcony right on Ocean Drive.
Mm-hmm.
So I think right now Florida is in the front running. So New York, show me what you're working with.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can't wait for that decision, man. You got us on the edge of the seats. Who gonna get the $50 billion opportunity? Is it gonna be a red state or a blue state? and I guarantee that probably is gonna be a decision in getting that VOSB program, gold standard program approved for DOD. But guys, catch us on the next My Patriot Report Live to figure out where Mr. Cotton's going. Until next time, y'all have a great weekend. I am Ratwan Hill, and that is Mr. Walter Cotton III, and we are out.